Hello everyone, welcome back to Agri Farming. Today we will be discussing about beekeeping in India. Maintaining bee colonies in man-made hives is called honeybee farming or beekeeping. The practice of honeybee farming is termed technically as apiculture, and the location where these man-made hives are maintained is called an apiary. Bees are generally farmed for their honey and other products like bee wax, propolis, flower pollen, royal jelly, bee pollen, etc. This practice also produces bees which are sold by the beekeepers for income generation. Bee farming was believed to have begun thousands of centuries ago in North Africa. It is estimated that there are more than 20,000 species of wild bee species around the world. Bee farming is practiced with the social species of honeybee variety which live in colonies. Two widely used varieties of bee from the Apis genus are Apis mellifera and Apis cerana. The mellifera species are mostly managed by beekeepers of Europe and America, and hence this species is also known as Western honeybee. The cerana is managed by the beekeepers of the tropics and is also known as an Asiatic honeybee. There are two major ways in which these bees are farmed. They are the traditional beekeeping way, like the fixed comb hives, and the modern beekeeping techniques like the top bar hives, horizontal frame hives, and the vertical stackable frame hives. This honeybee farming is described the activities of beekeeping, and at the end we discuss about the cost involved to maintain a small farm of bees. Now, let's see the scope and importance of beekeeping. Commercial beekeeping is possible in India because of a vast forest cover facilitating the presence of nectar and pollen on its grasslands. It is known that 160 million hectares of land is under farming in India, out of which 55 million hectares of land is under entomophilous crops that needs cross-pollination by bees or other pollinators. The production of honey is about 10 million tons and that of bee wax is about 10,000 tons. So, if roughly estimated, there is a scope of beekeeping 2,000 million bee colonies in the country which can provide self-employment to over 10 million families of the rural population. Currently, there are 1.8 million colonies in the country and there is a need to expand the area under honeybee farming such that the required target is met. With increasing demand of honeybee in the country as well as the international market, the potential of honeybee farming should be tapped so as to create employment opportunities for the people in the rural areas and generate good income. Honeybee farming has remained a minor unit of cottage industry and there is being little scientific support and infrastructure provided for this sector. It is important to recognize the demand of Indian honey in the local and international markets and start exploring new ways to increase the production so as to meet the growing demand. Let's see the colony of honeybees. Honeybee belongs to the category of social insects which dwell in organized groups. While living in these groups, they show some typical behavioral traits such as communication, nest construction, defense, division of labor, environmental control, etc. These activities among the group make them excellent creatures on earth. The colony of honeybees generally has three types of bees: the workers, drones, and a queen. Each bee category has its own working structure, but survival and reproduction can happen only when all the bees work in coordination with each other. The size of the colony is directly responsible for the efficiency of the colony. The first is queen. Only the queen exists for the entire colony. The main task of the queen bee is reproduction. Most of the eggs are laid in spring and early summer. Average number of eggs laid per day are 1,500 eggs. Queen can be recognized by their elongated body during the egg laying period and has short wings, has curved stinger and large thorax. Its productive lifespan is 2 to 3 years. Next is drones. These are the male bees and are present in large numbers in a colony, present only during late spring and summer. The head of the drone bee is large with eyes meeting at the top of the head. They have no stinger, pollen baskets or wax glands. The main task of the drone bee is to fertilize the queen and die instantly after mating. The third is worker. They are the smallest bodied adult bees in the colony but are found more in number when compared to the other two. These are mainly the female bees which have no egg laying capacity but have special structures like the brood food gland, scent glands, wax glands and pollen baskets due to which they perform all the activities of the hive. The last but not the least workers are the laying workers. This indicates that the colony has been queenless for several weeks. Laying workers are also found in colonies during swarming season where the queen is poor. They lay 5 to 15 eggs per cell on the sides instead of the base and are reared to worker-sized cells. Equipment requirement for the farm. The factors on which the requirement of equipment depends are the size of the farm, the number of colonies, type of honey, etc. The basic farm needs are hive components, protective wear, smoker, hive tool, etc. The components of hive are hive stand, bottom board, hive bodies, frames and combs, queen excluder, inner cover, outer cover, plastic hive equipment, painting, smoker, hive tool, and protective gear. The next point is selection of the apiary. There are some recommendations for selecting a good apiary site for a profitable commercial bee farming business. They are: the site selected should be free from dry leaves and should be cleaned before starting bee farming so as to avoid accidental fire. The land should be far away from power stations, train tracks, etc. The area should be shaded but should be able to receive mild sun rays in the early morning and afternoon. Also, it should be easily accessible by road. It should have a supply of clean water. Let's get into the selection of the bees. Generally, honeybees of two varieties are farmed depending upon the availability of resources and the floral conditions of the area. The two varieties are Apis cerana and Apis mellifera. The success of the farm depends majorly on the quality of bees selected for the farm, especially the queen bee. The following can be done to select good bee colonies. The first point is bee colonies should be disease-free. The second is queen should have a high laying egg capacity and other bees should be able to have high yielding variety. The third point is capturing bee colonies from natural forest areas can help in getting good quality bees and increase the chances of excellent further breeding. The feed for the bees are: the honeybee feeds on pollen, nectar, honey and water. They are source of energy to the insects. Pollen provides the bee with proteins, vitamins, minerals and fat content, whereas honey provides them with carbohydrates. Emergency feed should always be available at the farm and consists of 15 to 20 pounds honey from an established colony of bees. This emergency feed is of utmost importance during the winter and spring seasons. Excess sugar syrup is not recommended as a substitute for feed because it may result in dysentery due to too much moisture. Emergency feed may be combs of honey, dry sugar, and sugar candy. Now, let's get into the apiary management. The hive should be made of locally available lightweight wood and should meet the BIS or ISI specifications. Hives should not be made with unseasoned or heavy wood. Care should be taken not to nail the bottom board with brood chamber. The average number of colonies per farm should be in the range of 50 to 100. The row spacing between colonies should be 10 feet and the box spacing should be 3 feet. Cleanliness in the apiary is the utmost importance, and any change in the behavior of bees should be immediately attended. The colonies should be inspected wearing a protective dress during the sunny days with temperature between 20 to 30 degrees Celsius and not during cold, windy days. The smoker is used to subdue the bees. The colonies should be handled very carefully. They should not be jerked or crushed. Healthy or diseased colonies should be handled separately by isolating the diseased colonies. Bee farmers keep fresh water for the bees in shallow containers all the time because water is needed to maintain the humidity of the colony for incubation of eggs, for feeding bee bread, and for keeping the colony cool during high temperature. The bees should be provided with 50% sugar syrup during the dearth periods, when there is no availability of nectar in the area. The syrup should be provided in shallow vessels so that the bees don't drown in it. This should be provided in the evening to all the bee colonies at the same time. Pollen can be made from soybean, brewer's yeast, skimmed milk powder, sugar, honey, etc., and is provided to the bees when there is no adequate pollen available in the area. If there are extra frames in the colony, then they should be stored in airtight containers and fumigated regularly. All dark combs should be removed and burned. The disease and pests of honeybees are threatened by pests such as tracheal mites, varroa mites, small hive beetles, wax moths, etc. Chemical treatment of these pests is not recommended as to preserve the quality of raw honey. Some ways to protect bee colonies from pesticides are recommending less harmful pesticides or low concentration of pesticides. Dust formulation should be avoided. Information about the proper use of pesticides can prevent poisoning of bees. Spraying pesticides during flowering of crops can increase the mortality rate of foraging bees. Pesticide can be used in the evening when there is no forage activity. When heavy pesticidal spray is required, bee colonies should be temporarily shifted to another areas, else it is recommended to feed the bees with 200 ml sugar syrup and protect the bees by a wire screen on the day of spraying. Let's get into the honey extraction. The most suitable time for removing honey is during the summer when the honey is adequate for the bees. Some rules for honey extractions are: leave the super with full honey at all times. Robbing behavior is controlled by removing the capped supers before the honey flow stops. Removing honey before the golden rod flow helps to separate the honey by flavor. Summer honey is light and mild, whereas fall honey is dark, rich in flavor, and crystallizes rapidly. The honey from the frames and supers are to be removed only when fully capped. Using smoke to remove combs and supers are one technique to extract honey and is expected to add flavor to it. A practical way of harvest is to shake off brush away from the bees from the comb. Another method of removing supers from large colonies is to use high volume, low pressure, forced air bee blower. After extraction, honey can be stored in many forms, and the post-extract processing involves granulation, reliquefying granulated honey, fermentation, etc. The last but not the least topic of today's bee farming is loans and subsidies for honeybee farming. The National Bee Board, in association with NABARD, has schemes for financing the beekeepers in India and also provides assistance for women's employment in these sectors. It is recommended to visit the National Bee Board website or the nearest office to understand the nature and terms or assistance being provided for bee farming in India. That's all folks for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and please ring the bell button to notify you whenever new video is uploaded. Thank you for watching.